Virginia Hart lived a quiet life in her small house at the edge of the countryside. She was 72, a widow, and her only child, Michael, was grown and lived in the city. Her days were slow and peaceful. She woke early every morning to make tea, tend to the little garden in front of her house, and walk down the lane where wildflowers grew along the fences. To the neighbors, Virginia was just another old woman, fragile but kind, always ready to give away apples from her trees or a smile from her tired face. But inside her, Virginia carried a deep love for the farm she and her late husband had once owned. That farm was more than land. It was the story of her life. She remembered the days when she and her husband worked side by side under the burning sun, planting seeds, feeding animals, and laughing at small things that made the hard work lighter. When he died, the farm became her anchor, something that kept her going. She often told herself that one day, Michael would take care of it, and their family's name would live on. One autumn morning, Virginia felt a sharp pain in her chest while she was watering the flowers. It worried her, so she decided to visit Dr. Samuel Reeves, her longtime doctor. He had cared for her family for years, even when Michael was a boy. Virginia trusted him. She dressed carefully that morning, brushed her graying hair, and put on her warm shawl before walking to the clinic. The clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and was quiet except for the ticking clock on the wall. Virginia sat in the waiting room, her hands folded on her lap. She hummed softly to calm herself. When her name was called, she smiled politely and walked into the doctor's office. Dr. Reeves greeted her kindly. "Good morning, Virginia. Sit down, let's see how you're doing." He typed on his computer, looking through her file. For a moment, he seemed normal. But then his brow furrowed. He clicked again. His smile faded. His eyes shifted from the screen to Virginia and then back again. Virginia noticed the change. Her heart began to beat faster. "Doctor, is something wrong?" she asked softly. Dr. Reeves hesitated. He leaned back in his chair and let out a slow breath. His voice lowered, almost a whisper. "Virginia, according to this record, you died in 2019. The words fell into the room like a stone into still water. Virginia's ears rang. She felt dizzy, as though the floor had moved beneath her. She blinked and stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Her hands trembled against her shawl. Dr. Reeves turned the monitor slightly, as if to show her, though he quickly pulled it back. "The system has a death certificate attached to your file. It lists you as deceased 6 years ago." Virginia shook her head. "That can't be true. I am here, alive, speaking to you." Her voice rose, breaking into fear. "How can the papers say I am dead?" The doctor leaned forward, his expression serious and gentle. "Virginia, I don't know how this happened. But someone reported your death. This isn't a simple error. There is an official document." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Who would do such a thing? Who would erase me?" Her voice cracked, and for the first time in years, she felt a deep, raw panic. She clutched her shawl as though it were the only thing keeping her steady. Dr. Reeves placed a hand on hers. "Please, don't panic. I will help you. But you need to go to the town records office. They can give you more information. Bring any identification you have. Do not let this rest, Virginia. Something is very wrong." Virginia nodded, but her body felt heavy, her legs weak. She stood slowly, her mind a storm of questions. As she left the clinic, the world outside looked strange, almost unreal. The trees she had walked past every day seemed distant, the air colder, the people around her like shadows. She thought about her husband, gone for so many years. She thought about the farm. And then, she thought about Michael. A dark fear whispered in her heart, what if he knew something about this? What if he was part of it? She tried to push the thought away. He was her son, her only child. Surely he would never. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it would not leave her mind. Virginia walked home slowly that day, her steps unsteady. The sky above was grey, and the wind carried a chill. Each moment, her thoughts circled back to the same terrifying truth. Somewhere, on some official paper, she was already gone. And she had no idea why. Virginia hardly slept that night. She sat by the window, staring out at the dark sky. Her heart was heavy, her mind filled with questions she could not answer. How could she be listed as dead when she was alive? Who would dare do such a thing? And why? Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Dr. Reeves's voice again. According to this record, you died in 2019. At sunrise, Virginia decided she couldn't sit still any longer. She put her identification papers, her old driver's license, birth certificate, and some letters with her name into a worn leather bag and set off toward the town records office. Her steps were slow but firm. The town hall was a tall, grey building with wide stone steps. Inside, the walls smelled of old paper and dust. People stood in line, waiting to be called. Virginia felt out of place among them, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, her hands trembling as she clutched her bag. When her turn came, she walked up to the counter where a middle-aged clerk with tired eyes sat behind glass. "Good morning," she said softly. "I need to check something important. My name is Virginia Hart. My doctor told me the system says I am dead. But I am clearly alive." She gave a nervous laugh, though no one in the room smiled. The clerk frowned, typing quickly on his computer. After a few seconds, his eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Yes, Mrs. Hart," he said, glancing at her carefully. "There is a death certificate in your name. It says you died in 2019. Cause of death, heart failure." Virginia gasped. Her hand flew to her chest. "Heart failure? That never happened. I was fine. I never died." The clerk lowered his voice. "I believe you. But this document is official. And it was signed by your son, Michael Hart, who reported your death." Virginia felt the ground tilt beneath her. Her breath came short, her knees weakening. "Michael," she whispered. Her son's name tasted bitter on her tongue. "No, there must be some mistake. My son would never." The clerk shook his head slowly. "Mrs. Hart, I am sorry. But his name is here. He signed it. After that, your property, the farm, was legally transferred. According to our records, it was sold soon after." Virginia's heart broke. Tears blurred her vision as she leaned against the counter for support. She could hardly believe it. Her own child, the boy she had raised with love, had declared her dead as if she were nothing more than an obstacle in his path. She stumbled out of the building, the cold air striking her face. Her bag felt heavier than before, though it carried nothing new, only her broken trust. She walked aimlessly through the streets, seeing nothing, hearing nothing but the echo of the clerk's words. "It was signed by your son, Michael Hart." By afternoon, Virginia sat in a small park, staring at the children running and laughing. She remembered Michael as a boy, running on their farm, chasing chickens, and laughing freely. Where had that child gone? What had turned him so cold? The next day, Virginia gathered all her strength and took the train to the city where Michael lived. The ride was long, and every mile felt like a wound. She kept rehearsing what she would say. "Michael, tell me it's not true. Tell me this is a mistake." But deep inside, a painful voice whispered, "He did it. He chose this." When she reached the city, she found his address. The house was modern, big, with shiny glass windows. Nothing about it reminded her of the warm, simple farm they once had. Her heart beat hard as she walked up the path and knocked on the door. Michael opened it. For a moment, he froze, his eyes widening. Then his face changed, calm, almost annoyed. "Mother," he said flatly. "You weren't supposed to come here." Virginia's voice shook. "Michael, is it true? Did you sign papers saying I was dead? Did you sell the farm?" Her eyes searched his face, hoping for denial, for any sign of regret. But Michael only sighed. "I needed money. You're old. That farm was wasted on you. I did what had to be done." Virginia's heart shattered like glass. She staggered back, covering her mouth. Tears poured down her cheeks. "How could you? I gave you everything. Your father and I built that farm for you. It was our life, our dream." Michael's eyes were cold. "Dreams don't pay bills, Mother. That land was worth more as money. You should be thanking me for finally moving on." Virginia could hardly breathe. Her own son, the one she had fed, clothed, and loved, had erased her, stolen from her, and spoken as if it meant nothing. She felt like the air around her had frozen. With trembling steps, she turned away. Michael did not call her back. He did not stop her. The door closed behind her with a hollow sound, like the final nail in her broken heart. As she walked back through the city streets, Virginia wiped her tears. The pain was unbearable, but another feeling grew inside her: resolve. Her son had betrayed her, but she would not disappear quietly. If Michael thought he could bury her with lies, he was wrong. She would fight. And she would find the truth, no matter how deep it was buried. Virginia woke before sunrise. The city was still grey and quiet, but her mind was set. She could not change Michael's words, but she could fight the lie that buried her. She took a deep breath, packed her papers, and called the lawyer Dr. Reeves had suggested the night before, Clara Benson. Clara's office was small but warm. Framed certificates lined one wall, on another, a simple clock ticked softly. Clara herself was calm, with steady eyes that did not look away when things were hard. She listened without interrupting as Virginia told the whole story: Dr. Reeves's shock, the records office, Michael's door closing in her face. When Virginia finished, Clara folded her hands. "We will fix this," she said in a clear voice. "But we need proof. Real, organized proof. We will show the court you are alive, and we will show who did this and how." They began that same morning. Clara made a list on a yellow notepad. Proof of life after 2019 medical visits, bills, letters, witnesses. Official copies of the death certificate and the land transfer. Bank records showing where the money from the farm went. Any messages between Michael and the buyer or anyone who helped. Expert review of signatures and forged notes. First stop was Dr. Reeves's clinic. The doctor welcomed them with concern in his eyes. He signed a sworn statement that he had seen Virginia many times after 2019 and that she was alive and mentally clear. He printed appointment logs. He also mentioned something odd from 3 years ago. A woman had called the clinic asking if the office would update records to reflect a past medical decline. The clinic refused and logged the call. He could not prove who the caller was, but he gave the time and date. Next, they returned to the town records office. The same clerk recognized Virginia and quickly brought out certified copies: the death certificate, the property transfer, the buyer's deed. Clara read everything carefully. The certificate claimed Virginia had died of heart failure at home. The signature declaring death belonged to Michael. The witness line listed a J. Hart. Virginia's hands shook. "Julia," she whispered. Clara took photos, requested stamped copies, and asked for any attached notes. The clerk found a small file, a notary's seal, a copy of an ID used to verify the report, and a handwritten note that said, "Mother's condition worsened, decline long-term, please process quickly." The handwriting was neat and controlled. Virginia stared at it for a long moment. "This is not mine," she said. Clara nodded. "We'll send this to a handwriting expert." They moved like clockwork. At the bank, Clara filed a legal request for statements tied to the sale. The manager, cautious but cooperative once he saw the lawyer's badge and letters, provided a timeline. The buyer, a development firm, wired the money to a joint account in the names of Michael and Julia Hart. Within 48 hours, large transfers moved out to several places: a luxury car dealer, a credit card company, and a private lender. There was also a transfer labeled consulting, sent to an account under the initials JB. Clara copied everything. "Debt," Clara said quietly as they left the bank. They were drowning in debt. They visited neighbors from Virginia's lane. 2 women and an elderly couple remembered seeing Virginia many times after 2019, walking with her shawl, sharing apples every fall. One neighbor still had a birthday card signed by Virginia in 2021. She gave it to Clara with a kind smile. "She's always been alive to us," the woman said. "We would have known." Back at Clara's office, they spread the papers across a long table. Clara organized them into neat stacks: proof of life, forged records, money trail. She called a handwriting expert, who promised to rush a review. She also reached a digital investigator to pull email headers and phone logs from public records and any legal sources they could request. While they worked, A message arrived, an email forwarded from a real estate broker. It was a short, direct note from Julia's address to the broker, months before the sale. Property will be free and clear soon. Need quick buyer. No delays. The date was 2 weeks before the death certificate was filed. Clara leaned back, eyes sharp. She prepared the sale before you were dead. Virginia closed her eyes. The truth hurt more each time it came into focus. She planned it, she said softly. And he let her. Clara placed a gentle hand on Virginia's arm. We will use the truth, not anger. That is how we win. The next day, they visited the development firm that now owned the farm. A manager met them in a glass room that overlooked a busy street. He was careful with his words. We purchased the land in good faith, he said. We saw the legal documents. We had no reason to question them. Clara did not argue. She only asked for their file on the transaction, emails, contracts, the timeline of the bid. The manager hesitated, then agreed to share copies with a formal request. As they stood to leave, he added, we met with Mrs. Hart's son and his wife. The wife handled most details. Outside, the wind was sharp. Virginia held the rail for support, her eyes on the moving traffic. I feel like I'm walking through a bad dream, she said. I keep hoping I'll wake up on the farm, with the morning light on the kitchen table. Clara's voice was steady. Dreams kept you going. Now let the facts do the same. That afternoon, the handwriting expert called. He had compared the note on the records file and several samples, old Christmas lists from Virginia, her signature on a library card, letters from years past. The note is not written by Virginia, he said. The style and pressure matched the signature of Julia Hart on the property sale documents. He sent a short report with side-by-side marks, how certain letters curved, how the pressure rose at the end of lines, how the writer lifted the pen before crossing a T. Clara printed the report and placed it on top of the forged note stack. This is strong, she said. Evening fell, and the office lights glowed soft and warm. Virginia looked over the table and saw her life turned into paper. Dates, numbers, seals, signatures. It felt cold and distant, yet it was also a map leading out of the dark. She thought of Michael as a boy, of the nights he curled against her when storms rattled the roof. She pressed her lips together. Love did not erase truth. Clara packed the files into folders. Tomorrow we file motions, she said. We will ask the court to restore your legal status, open a fraud case, and freeze any remaining funds connected to the sale. We will request subpoenas for communications between Michael, Julia, the notary, and the broker. Virginia nodded. Her fear did not vanish, but it had a shape now. It sat beside courage, and together they felt like iron under her ribs. As they were leaving, Clara's phone buzzed again, another forward from the broker. A short voicemail transcription, move quickly. The mother won't be a problem. Paperwork is handled. The voice was listed as unknown, but attached metadata showed the caller's number belonged to a prepaid phone purchased near Julia's workplace. A small chill went through the room. Clara locked her office and turned to Virginia in the hallway. This is bigger than a greedy choice, she said quietly. This was a plan. Virginia met her eyes. She was tired, heartsore, but steady. Then we will meet the plan with truth. They stepped into the night air. Somewhere in the city, cars moved, windows glowed, and people laughed in restaurants. Life went on. For Virginia, life was now a path back to her own name. With each careful step, she felt the ground under her feet grow firm again. Tomorrow, they would face the court. Tomorrow, the lie would begin to crack. Morning light slipped through the thin curtains of Clara's office as Virginia signed the last page of the filings. The folders were heavy, but her hands were steady now. They walked to the courthouse together. The building was large and cold, with long hallways that echoed every step. Inside the courtroom, a few people waited on wooden benches. Michael and Julia sat at the far end with their lawyer. Michael stared at the table. Julia kept her chin high, her eyes sharp and restless. The judge entered, and everyone stood. When they sat again, Clara spoke first. Her voice was calm and clear. She explained the simple truth. Virginia Hart was alive. She placed the proof on the record: doctor statements, appointment logs, neighbors' affidavits, a birthday card, bills with recent dates, and the bank trail from the sale. Then she slid forward the certified death certificate and the transfer papers that followed it like falling stones. The judge looked at Virginia for a long moment. "Mrs. Hart, do you swear that you are who you say you are?" "I do," Virginia said, her voice soft but firm. Clara called Dr. Reeves. He told the court he had treated Virginia after 2019, and he described the strange call asking the clinic to update her status. The clerk from the town office confirmed the filing details. Then came the handwriting expert. He explained, in simple words, how the note mother's condition worsened did not match Virginia's hand. He pointed to shapes of letters, the pressure, the lift of the pen. "It matches the hand of Julia Hart," he said. A small wave went through the room. Julia crossed her arms, but her foot tapped fast under the table. Michael still stared down. Clara requested a pause. The judge agreed. In the quiet hallway outside, Clara checked her phone. A new email had arrived from the digital investigator, a short report with traced messages and call logs linked to the prepaid number near Julia's workplace. One message was key. It was to the real estate broker: 2 weeks before the death filing, paperwork will be done. Seller's mother will not interfere. Clara's eyes narrowed. "This is enough," she said. Back inside, Clara played the short voicemail transcription the broker had saved. "Move quickly. The mother won't be a problem. Paperwork is handled." The judge listened, then turned to Julia's lawyer. "Does your client wish to respond?" Before the lawyer could speak, Michael rose. His hands shook. "Your Honor, I need to say something." Julia grabbed his sleeve. "Sit down," she hissed. Michael pulled free. "I can't do this anymore." He looked at Virginia, and for a second his face was the face of a boy who once ran through fields. Then he turned to the judge. "I signed the certificate. I knew it was wrong. But Julia pushed me. We were in debt. We owed a private lender. If I didn't get money fast, they would come after us. Julia said she had a plan. She found a notary who would look the other way. She wrote the note about my mother's decline. She called the clinic. She set up the sale before the certificate was even filed. I was weak. I chose the easy path. I am sorry." A silence fell. The judge looked to Julia. Her face had gone hard. "He's lying," she said. But her voice shook, and her eyes slid to the side. Clara stood. "Your Honor, we also received a bank record labeled consulting paid to JB. That person is Julia's brother, Jeremy Blake. He holds a notary license. We request the court accept this as a potential conflict and refer it to the state for fraud investigation." Julia's control cracked. Jeremy only helped with paperwork, she started, then stopped, realizing what she had said. The judge raised a hand. "Enough." The judge restored Virginia's legal status at once. "This court recognizes that Virginia Hart is alive and was wrongfully declared deceased," he said. He set an immediate order to freeze any remaining funds tied to the sale and referred the document trail, the notary involvement, and the voicemail to the district attorney. He also opened a civil path for damages. But there was one more turn, small, quiet, and heavy. As the courtroom emptied, a detective approached with 2 officers. They asked Julia to step aside. The district attorney's office had already moved on the new evidence. The officers read Julia her rights for suspected fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. She stiffened, then looked at Michael with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You did this," she said, as if it were a simple thing to place blame and walk away from it. They led her out. Michael stood alone, his shoulders low. He took one step toward Virginia. "Mother, I." Virginia held up a hand. The gesture was not cruel. It was clear. "I heard you," she said softly. "I needed the truth. Now I have it." He swallowed. "I will accept whatever comes. I will testify. I'll try to make it right. Start by telling the whole truth," she said. "To the court. To yourself." Days turned into weeks. Papers moved. Phone calls came and went. Clara guided every step. The development firm cooperated and was not charged, they had bought in good faith. The state suspended Jeremy Blake's notary license and opened a case. Julia faced charges. Michael, who had confessed and provided full cooperation, accepted a plea that included restitution and community service. He did not fight it. Virginia did not get the farm back. It was already cleared for a new build, and the law could not turn time backward. The settlement, however, was fair. It would not replace the smell of hay in summer or the way light fell across the kitchen table in the early morning, but it could build something new. On the first warm Saturday of spring, Virginia stood in a small lot by the old school and watched volunteers lift wooden frames for garden beds. Clara hauled soil with her sleeves rolled up. Dr. Reeves brought herb seedlings. The neighbors from the lane arrived with packets of seeds and a thermos of sweet tea. A hand-painted sign leaned against a post, Heart Community Garden. Children ran between the beds, laughing the way Michael once did. The sound carried across the grass like a gentle wind. Virginia felt a weight inside her shift and settle. The garden was not the farm, but it was honest. It grew from truth, not lies. Later that day, Michael came quietly to the edge of the lot. He did not walk in. He stood with his hands clasped, as if he wasn't sure he deserved to cross the boundary. Clara noticed him first. She looked to Virginia, waiting for her lead. Virginia walked a few steps toward him and stopped. They were close enough to see each other clearly, far enough to keep the space between them safe. "I can't forget," she said, "and I can't pretend this didn't happen." "I know," he said, voice low. "I will help the garden. I'll pay what I owe. I'll come only if you ask." She nodded. "Help the garden. Help your own heart. Do it because it is right, not because it is easy." He lowered his head. "Yes, Mother." As evening came, the beds lay ready, dark soil neat and promising. Virginia pressed 3 seeds into the earth, one for what was lost, one for what was saved, and one for what could yet grow. She covered them with care, then sat on the low bench a neighbor had built from old fence boards. She thought about the twist that had turned her life. It wasn't only the lie that tried to bury her. It was the truth that pulled her out, the quiet working truth, page by page, voice by voice, until the light touched everything. Pain remained, but it had edges now. And beyond those edges, something kinder waited. The wind moved through the young leaves. Somewhere nearby, a bell rang the hour. Virginia breathed in the smell of soil and memory and felt the world settle into place. She was not erased. She was seen. She was alive. And what she planted now would carry her name forward, not as a rumor in a file, but as roots and flowers that anyone could touch.